Hello, Tom LeVecchia here with the latest edition of the New Theory Podcast. We have some really cool stuff going on. We're about to hit 100,000, might be at 100,000 by the time this video comes out. I don't think so, as we're taping around 92,000. So hit that like button, subscribe, and share. We have a very special guest today in my wheelhouse of marketing. And this is going to apply to not just the restaurant space where he's an expert in, but really business and also your career. So I always say this, listen, if you have, 45 minutes or an hour, listen through, watch through. If you don't, hit the pause button and come back to this, because this is going to be very applicable to what you do in your work life and even in your personal life. So today we got Henry Kaminski Jr. of Brand at Table. He is a leading restaurant and marketing expert, a branding expert. Henry, welcome to the New Theory Podcast. How you doing today?
Thanks for having me, Tom. Excited to be here. Super pumped to meet you in person finally. And looking forward to the chat.
All right, so let's start off. So a lot has went on in the hospitality space for the last 5-6 years, even outside of the pandemic. Just it's been really kind of volatile, right? I want to kind of talk about first, if you're in the hospitality business or if you have your own business and you need to serve clients, kind of let's go back to 2018, 2019, before the pandemic. What was business like then? What's it like now? And how do you have to kind of change with the modern times? I know it's a loaded question.
Yeah, no, there's a lot of answers in that question. So going back to 2008, I'm going to show my age. I was 27, 28. And I was big in the nightlife industry. That's how I got started in the hospitality space. New York? Mostly Jersey. And then I got into New York a couple years later, 2-3 years later. Oh, cool. Kind of, it was like the everything erupted. It kind of came all at once. And it was, I wasn't ready for it. I'll be honest with you. I wasn't ready for it. It was kind of a funny story. One of my buddies was a club promoter. He needed some extra help with graphic design for the.
Can you say his name?
Jerry Camerata.
Oh,
Jerry C.
Oh, come on.
He's one of my best friends to this day.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. So he came to me. He says, "I need some help with some design work." Taught me the ins and outs of Photoshop at the time. And next thing you know, a couple other promoters were like, "I heard you're fast. Yeah. I heard you're good. Can you help us there?" And the next thing you know, I got 18 accounts. And then what happens is the liquor companies, the beer distributors, they catch wind of me. And next thing you know, they're like, "All right, you're gonna help me with my accounts."
Was Jerry E-Rock?
No, he was nightlife entertainment.
That's it.
But I worked with a lot.
You worked with Kenny or no?
What was his name?
Kenny Hammer? No.
I think he was on a few projects. Yeah, he was on a few projects.
Jerry, I can't believe that's funny.
But yeah, I mean, our kids are 3 months apart.
Oh wow,
they're best friends to this day, and it's been crazy. So getting back to your question, right? It was like the Wild West back then. But one of the things I want to hammer down is it's hard to teach hospitality, right? You either have it or you don't, and that's something that comes very natural to me. I have family that's in the restaurant business for 20-something years, owned multiple locations at one point, and I kind of just was a wallflower and watched how, my uncle did business and how he was able to create an experience, even back then, that was like, wow, he knows how to treat people. He knows how to make people feel special. Yeah. Right. And even to Jerry, giving props to Jerry. I mean, when you booked a table with him or when you did something with him and his group, he always made you feel like you're $1 million or a rock star or a movie star. Right. And I think that's so important in the hospitality space. And today, with AI, with social media, things like that, it's like the stakes are a lot higher now. Right. Because you have a bad experience and it travels like wildfire. Yeah. Right. And so it was very important to nail down that hospitality. And if you need help with it, find a mentor, find a coach as soon as you can. But a lot of the people that are winning today, it comes very natural to them.
So then I do agree with you on that. Things have changed a lot. Then you kind of get forward to like early 20s to 2020s. that was like kind of like the around the Yelp era, and then Yelp would kind of call you and like, hey, you want to buy an ad? We'll get rid of your bad stuff. And then reviews were very important. And like Google kind of came in. Give us kind of that I consider that, like that review era, and why was that important? That kind of shaped what's happening today.
Well, it's still very important,
Yeah.
right? I mean, when you go to Google and you're a 4.1, you're a 4.2, you're gonna be questioned, right? And they're gonna dig a little deeper. You get the 4.5, the 4.7, you get 4.7 and beyond, and Google starts treating you different, right? But as far as reach and things like that, right? But it's extremely important. I hate to say this, but so many people judge books by their cover, and a lot of restaurants get judged by their reviews. It is what it is, right? So you have a routine, you have your circuit of restaurants. It's very hard to break someone out of that rotation, right? I'm sure you got your spots. I got mine. So it's hard. And if you have a review that's a little lackluster, you're probably not going to, say it's worth it to bust out of your routine.
True.
So the reviews are very, very important. But I think one of the things that we need to pay attention to is like how to gamify the reviews, how to leverage the reviews, especially the good ones, right? When we work with clients, we always explain to them how, your reviews are like your secondary and tertiary marketing people, right? It's your customers can be a tremendous marketing tool for you. So make sure you're leveraging those 5-star reviews as much as you can through your social media, because people are watching, people are reading them.
All right. So kind of fast forward to 2025, so the game is different, but it's the same, but it's different, right? And what but what I mean by that for those watching is it's kind of like you have the goal here, but your approach is a lot different. What are some of the newer trends that you're seeing in the restaurant space or hospitality space in 2025?
Yeah, so it's all about experience, man. It's all about experience. It's creating those tableside events, right? They're events, right? The other thing that I'm seeing is, well, let me give you a quick example of that. The tableside caprese at one of the restaurants that we did work with was a huge guy selling tableside caprese for $40 a pop.
Yikes!
And it's a top seller. It's a top seller, right? So, but he brought that experience to the table and changed the game, right? The margin on appetizers, the margin on desserts and beverage, right, are astronomical. So I shouldn't say astronomical, but that's
much higher than
your entrees, right? So knowing that, bringing that experience to tableside. The other big trend you're seeing, and you're going to see a lot more of, is the memberships. It's and you can do it on a real basic level, or you could get a little fancy. Like we have a client that does the wine locker program, like Capital Grill. He was inspired by the Capital Grill. I was a wine locker holder for many years at the one in Paramus, so I had some experience there on the consumer side, as the client, as the customer, and I took a lot of notes. So you're going to see a lot of membership-based dining, where people are going to pay a monthly fee or an annual fee and get different perks and rewards and exclusives.
Social club.
Pretty much, it's not anything new.
Yeah.
I see a lot of things just getting reinvented, and they're getting reinvented on a higher quality. And I think
and they're bringing back, like I said earlier, they're bringing back basic programs of making it look like they're new. Now, one of the positives for a membership program, say a restaurant or hospitality space, one of the benefits is exclusivity, predictable revenue, hopefully loyalty. Any downsides on the execution or any downsides to having a membership program if it's not implemented correctly?
So when we were discussing the strategy around this, we did have one objection. One of the team members, he was like, are we afraid of exclusion? Are we afraid of drawing that line and making people have that FOMO, right? And it working against us? And I said, no, I think we need to lay into that FOMO, because it's just part of human nature, how people react to scarcity and react to things that they cannot get. It's just weird how it works. So I said, no, I appreciated the objection. I appreciated him bringing that up, but I said, you have to lean into that as much as you can, because it's going to really elevate the brand as a whole. And you'll see that person that might be frustrated that they can't be part of that, maybe work towards being part of that and then becoming part of that. So I think it was very important to address that, but lean into that FOMO and scarcity, because it's part of marketing. It's a part of what makes people react and get people moving in a direction.
So as a branding expert, right, can you define what a brand is for the audience from your perspective, and what are the components of the brand, other than obviously the logo and stuff, for a hospitality company?
Okay, so branding as a whole, and we'll go broad here, is the feeling that your business or person, we could talk about personal branding too. I think it's very important, especially a lot of chefs out there that want to brand themselves. And during the pandemic, how I got through the pandemic was branding people, because they were losing their jobs. They had 20, 30 years experience, didn't know how to leverage that, and came to me because they saw me building my personal brand and said, help me.
Yeah.
And so brand is the feeling that people get when they interact with either you or your business. So it's the warm and fuzzies, or it's the, I never want to experience that person or that venue or that business again. That's brand. It's what sometimes you can't see. It's what you feel.
And what are some of those little nuances, when they give you the 3 candies, they tip 17% more, or, hey, do you want, fries with that, or these little nuances? Yeah. What are some of the little nuances or tips you give maybe servers or people in hospitality where they can maybe hike up their average order value?
Yeah, so you want to get drinks on the table as soon as possible. That's the first thing. And there's the 7 steps of service, and there's routine of what should happen first, second, and third. And I might go out on a limb here and say, I'm kind of a rule breaker when it comes to rules. You can ask my wife. Yeah. She's like, "Who do you think you are?" And I'm like, I was just never one for rules. If it made sense or it kept me safe, absolutely, right? Yeah. But when it comes to this kind of stuff, I tend to stretch a little bit because, for example, menu should be down before you ask for drinks. I'm going to challenge that. And I'm going to say, you scope the room, and this is where hospitality comes in, or scope the table, figure out who looks the thirstiest, and make sure that person is backed up. Because, and then they also say, if you could get that second drink in before the entrees come, you're gonna raise that check average. Yeah. So it's getting drinks on the table as soon as possible, and it's touch points. It's making people feel comfortable. I always say it's like you never want to be rushed, or you never want to be ignored. So having that dialogue table side with your guests. Sometimes you're busy. I get it. Yeah. But making that person feel at home, making that person feel special. Sounds very bland and generic, but that's the golden ticket,
One of the things that
I have another one too.
Yeah, go
real
ahead.
Quick before I forget. Funny story. Place up by me. Went there, booked through Open Table. Now, Open Table and Resi, they have these bios.
Yeah.
And I think I stole this from Will Guidara. Will Guidara in his book Unreasonable Hospitality, right? He talked about filling out your bio on your Open Table and on your Resi programs, right? And so I walk into this restaurant, they have my bio, and what I filled out was where I like to be seated, the type of scotch I like, that's the red wine I like, the white wine I like, the appetizers I prefer, right? I put all of that in the bio. Walked in, they sat me down, corner table, great. Server comes over, what kind of water can I get you? And I was like, oh, flat's fine for now. And he's like, your open table bio said you liked Pellegrino.
Oh, shit.
And I was like,
There you
okay,
go.
he's taking notes, huh?
Yeah, huh?
So he comes over and I said, you know what, bring us a bottle of Pellegrino, right? So he brings over the Pellegrino. So what happened was prior to that, as we're sitting down, the hostess, right, she's a 20-something-year-old girl, whatever, she pulled the waiter into where she was at, the station, and showed him the bio of my, I think it was on the table. And he had my whole background dialed in.
Thought of that.
And came in and just blew me off my seat. And I said, so he got like an 80% tip that night.
Nice.
I gave the girl, a little something because I said, you know what? I wouldn't have had the experience you gave me today if it wasn't for you showing him the bio.
Wow.
So pay attention to your bio. I have another experience, and I won't call anybody out. 13-year anniversary with my wife. Go to a special place. Sat down, had the meal. Not a mention. So I walked out, and I said to the GM, I said, pal, you got to read your reservations, man. Because when that reservation pops up on their screens, you have the bird's eye view of that customer, right? You didn't read that it was our 13-year wedding anniversary, right? So things like that. And I wasn't expecting anything, Tom, but I'm looking at things like that when I'm going in, especially being in the industry, right?
Yeah.
I'm looking for those little things. So paying attention to those little things going to go a long way.
Interesting. Because I'm glad you brought up those stories because I wanted to talk about actually from the dining perspective. I get frustrated because food costs are so high right now, and to go out to dinner is so expensive, and drinks are so expensive, especially in New Jersey.
Sure.
So I get pissed off when I have like a $200, $300, $400 bill just for my wife and me, and it's not good. So what advice do you have to somebody who wants a special date night, anniversary? What can you do ahead of time to really scope out a restaurant to see if it's good or not? The other thing is influencers, right? Everything is the best when it comes to influencers because they're getting paid, and we'll spend a second
we can
on that.
talk about that.
That was probably spent a lot of time on that one. But how can you scope out a good restaurant? What are some tips there?
Well, word of mouth is always going to be great because your friends are going to tell you the good, the bad, the ugly, right? That's pretty common. You're going to look at the reviews, like we said. It's hard to tell, right? Because like you said, you have influencers out there, blasting this great experience, and you go, and it's not really what they said it was, right? So you have to really, I'm not someone who likes to judge books by their cover. I like to experience. I like to figure it out on my own. And if I have to take a hit, I will. But I think it's really just going in experience and preparing. I think it's a mindset thing too.
Yeah.
When I go to these places, I try not to expect too much, right? I just try not to. My expectations are very low, and I just go in with zero to no expectation, because when somebody does something a little extra or does something a little different than what I expected, I'm just like blown away. And I have story after story where when I went into a venue and I had all these expectations, it was like I wasn't wowed. I was like, the very, very exclusive steakhouse in the city.
No.
Hard to get to, hard to get in. I go for the first time a couple weeks ago. I'm like, dude, I could have went to a couple steakhouses in Jersey and had a better time and experience and a better steak.
Yeah.
Right? So, it's like I don't like to hype things up too much. I like the experience to speak for itself.
I love it when the experience matches the hype. My wife and I, early part of the year, went to the Polo Bar. It was like a possible again. We got in, and it was nice. We had a nice time. She loved it. I loved it. We had a great time. So I do like it when the hype matches the experience. So what are some of the pitfalls for restaurant owners nowadays and people in business in general, but more on the restaurant hospitality side? What are some pitfalls to look out for that, could get you in trouble?
Yeah, so not paying attention to branding, and I'm pretty partial here,
Yeah.
but I think branding is playing a major role. And during the pandemic, I think it really woke people up because it was, especially on the consulting side, people were caught with their pants down. They were not in a good position to try to go out and generate revenue for themselves or their business. And I'll give you another story. When I came in as CMO for a big hospitality group in Chicago, I realized that there was 15 venues under this group, and none of them were really properly branded. And it was like, oh, we'll just get the logo done on Fiverr and we'll spend $40 on a logo. We'll spend, a couple $100 on a color palette, if that, right? Or my wife picked out my color palette for the restaurant, and we're just going to roll with that.
Yep.
I saw that there were some issues there. I was starting to cringe up a little bit. So I remember being on an ownership call, and I said, "This place has no point of view." And the guy said, one of the owners said, "What do you mean? What do you mean by point of view?" And I said, "Well, if this restaurant was a person," and it had the name of a person, ironically, the name of the restaurant was a guy's name.
Yeah.
I said, he's got like no personality.
Interesting.
So if I walk into this place, or if I walk into another fast casual tavern type place, there's no differentiation, right? The guy's got this restaurant has this weird story behind it that nobody could really tell correctly. The staff knows nothing about the history of this brand. So when somebody at the table says, "Who is this blank guy's name that owns this place?" the servers look at him like they saw a ghost in a deer in headlights. Like, "Oh, well, we don't really know." So now the guest's like, "Well, if you don't know about that, like, then how's this food gonna taste?" Right? The other thing I noticed was menus. Menus. It was not what it was. Very. Some of the things I realized, it was like what we wanted. It was what ownership wanted.
Yeah.
It wasn't what the guests wanted. It was very ownership focused. It wasn't guest focused. So I'm looking at the menu, and I remember this. It was like it was yesterday. Executive chef presents me the menu, and I'm looking over it, and I said, "What kind of homework did you do on these pieces?" And he said, "What do you mean?" He said, "I hand selected all these entrees, everything." I said, "Did you ever do a Google search of what people were Googling in a 5-10 mile radius of this place?"
Interesting.
And he said, "No." I said, "Probably wouldn't be a bad idea or stress test your menu. Take these items and say best X in name of town.
Yeah.
See what shows up. If 3 people are searching for that, probably not an item you want on the menu."
Good point.
Right? So it's like leveraging some of that stuff that it's like right under our nose that we're not utilizing, right? So branding is a huge piece of the restaurant business. Now, the good news is I'm noticing a lot of new venues that are opening, they're going heavy into branding.
Yeah.
They're getting their story told on social media.
Yeah.
They're getting their story told in the venue itself, right?
Yeah.
I'll take one, for example, Runway 84 down in Fort Lauderdale. Not a client of mine, but Anthony's been a good friend of mine for years.
Yeah.
And when he renovated that place, he did not leave one napkin unturned. And that story tells, a lot of legacy of his father, a lot of legacy of the history of the family, all of that stuff. It's all in that venue.
But you just you talking about it kind of even gives me chills because the transference. And I want to go there if I'm in the area. My sister lives down there or has a house down there. So Runway 84?
Runway 84. I mean, you can't, there's nothing on the menu that I would question.
That's amazing.
It's one of those places.
So, okay, so kind of take a quick inventory. So you got the branding down, you got the experience down, you got the training down. Well, now we need people to come in, right? And that's kind of like our wheelhouse or mutual wheelhouse on how to get people in. And influencers, you got, some hyperlocal media, you got reviews, Google, PPC. Yeah. I mean, and then also, I know the rule of thumb, and you're the expert, that roughly 6% is on marketing, right? Is that about right?
Yeah, 6 to 10.
6 to 10.
Yeah.
Okay. So 6 to 10. So you gotta get people to come through the door. And what are some of what works now and what doesn't?
We talk about this all the time, right? And what we've seen work really well is, first and foremost, people eat with their eyes, right? That's number one. So getting those images out there, but again, creating that personality of the restaurant and getting the restaurant staff involved.
Yeah.
Right. Getting the beverage director involved, getting the GM involved, getting the host again. So there's a place out in Rockford, Illinois. Great friend of mine. Started with one restaurant. Now he's got 4. He was always asking me for advice on the marketing side. He's a great marketer himself. But I was giving him some pointers, and he's got this marketing guy now that's doing a fantastic job, and he's getting the bartenders involved. So some of the reels that are out there, it's the bartender getting interviewed, right? Of, what was the funniest thing that ever happened to you on a shift? What's your favorite dish on the menu? What, fill in the blank, right? And now when you go see that server in the venue, you kind of know them. You're fanboying them now because they have a great personality and they gave you some great tips or whatever, right? Yeah. But he's bringing that personality into social media, and now people are like, wow,
they want to come in.
Right now, I'm not into the gimmicky stuff.
Yeah,
I'm not. You don't need to jump up and down, do jumping jacks, and lip sync to a Justin Bieber song to get views. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about just authentic stuff about your brand, right? About your restaurant. There's a great authentic Italian place in Bumble, North Jersey, right? Up by like Vernon, right?
Oh, wow.
They came to Italy. They came from Italy 6 years ago, and they started this restaurant, and it's named the Puglia. And I met the owners, and everything about every single dish is as authentic.
Near Crystal Springs, kind of?
Yeah, it's right up that way, right?
Should be able to go.
And just their social media, the music that they use on their reels is from Italy, right? The way they present the food is, you could tell, everything is super authentic, and they don't deviate from that. Yeah. And they know what they are and they know what they're not, right? And I think that's something that I want to stress, like, know who you are as a brand and know who you aren't, because the consumer is going to look right through you if you're trying to be something that you're not.
Yeah.
And they're probably going to call you out on it too.
That's a good point. We talk a lot about congruency. Like, does it fit into what we're supposed to do, or does it fit in what we're not supposed to do? And what we're not supposed to do, are we supposed to be doing it or not? If we're not, get rid of it. Mm-hmm. So that makes perfect sense.
Let me go back to the whole marketing piece again.
Yeah, go a little more granular. Yeah. Only because there's people watching that are, have businesses or even the personal brand.
I see the ball drop a lot is the pre-marketing.
Okay.
The 30, 60, 90 days outside of opening a new venue.
Yeah.
We could talk about that. Is you got to get your press involved way in advance.
Yeah.
Right? You got to get your Chamber of Commerce involved. You got to get local businesses involved. We created these grand opening kits.
Oh,
so
nice.
Presentation folder, had the menu in it, had the story of the brand, had the GM's card, had the owner's card, it had all this little fun stickers and things that were in this kit, and we dumped 250 of those out before the restaurant even opened.
Oh, wow.
Right? And so the
almost like a media kit for restaurants.
Correct.
Oh, shit.
And it went over super well, right? And so you got to think well in advance, 30, 60, 90 days out. When you're doing your campaigns, you got to start thinking 30, 60, 90 days
All right.
out.
So this is okay. So now you're kind of.
We're going in the weeds.
Got me
We're going
going.
in the
I love you.
weeds.
Got me going. All right. So I'm on both sides. I market and I do PR and I do press for folks that are clients. But I also own a hyper-local New Jersey Digest. So people come inbound to us and want to kind of convince us to come in. So, so where do you land on? Should you have maybe a local publicist to try to get earned media? Should you maybe at first invest in influencers because it's more transactional and, they'll probably bring some quick revenue in? Are you more neither? Do it like yourself, DM people like Gary Vee? Like, where do you kind of land on that spectrum of like earned media, press, and influencers?
I say it's a necessary evil to do all of it.
Yeah.
Right? I do. I think if you have to strategize, you have to prioritize, but doing it all is going to be your best case scenario.
Yeah.
When I was CMO, we had a publicist that took care of every single venue. Even the ones that were outside of Chicago, she handled and did a fantastic job with getting that coverage, getting those grand openings opened, and getting the right people there, the mayor, the news, the local news, etc. Right? So we had that. I think people think that that's I'm too small for that, or I don't need that right now. We're going to have a fantastic grand opening and I'm not going to need that. Let me tell you something, those days of if you make it, they'll come is not necessarily valid anymore.
Well, it gets tricky too because so we have people on staff that are far more influential and far more in tune with the restaurant scene, right? Mm-hmm. So if some reason, if you get a pitch directly to me, I check with my team and say, hey, are you guys covering this? None of them are. And then I'll say, okay, my wife, like, do we really want to go here? Do we really want to cover this? Because there's times that respectfully, like, that falls under a paid program. And there's times that we're happy to do an editorial review. Mm-hmm. And it's really at our discretion. It's not like being a jerk. It's like, it's our discretion. Sure. Because we get so many invites, it's hard to, like, why do you charge one and not the other? Right. So there's more nuance. Mm-hmm. So what do you do when, you want to have because in the past it used to be you would have a media night, right? You invite all the local foodies, food bloggers,
friends and family,
influencers, everybody come, who works at Patch, who works whatever, and they write about it, right? Yeah. And that's kind of like the normal fare. Mm-hmm. But nowadays you want to do like an influencer event, they all want 1,500 each to show up. Mm-hmm. So again, I'm with you on you need all three, but how do you balance your budget? Because I notice I notice people do one or the other. It's either one, it's like a source of pride to not pay influencers, right? And I feel they're falling short. Yeah. But then there's the people that are doing what I call the fork and knife club, where then the same 6 influencers come, watch, rinse, repeat. So I've seen both extremes. Yes. Where do you land?
I will tell you this. I land on relationships and building relationships. And some are going to bear fruit. Some of them won't, right? Mm-hmm. But never burning a bridge.
Is it a numbers game?
I think it's a numbers game for sure. But the one of the things that I want to highlight is we talked about prep a couple minutes ago. What we did for one of our clients was we created an email list. We created an SMS text list. You could do this inside of 7 rooms. You could do it inside of OpenTable, Resi. You could do it with platforms like MailChimp and Klaviyo, and there's an app called Community that we used to leverage. Yeah. And what we did was we build up these massive lists before we opened. And so as we were getting closer to opening,
how did you build up? Like, what's some of the tactics to build up those lists?
Signage on the building, right?
QR code maybe.
Yep. Yeah, it was all QR code. You scan the code, you get on the list. You sign up for loyalty, get on the list. You'll get your first X free when you come during these grand opening days. So it was signage. It was direct mail. That is not dead. Yeah. Direct mail could still be very
I think certain
lucrative.
Like a local pizzeria or certain restaurants, certain businesses. You find your roof guy or gal on there.
Social media was huge. Yeah. We did campaigns inside of the Instagram stories and TikTok. We did organic posts. We did paid posts that just drove people to the sign up.
One of my favorite tactics now, and we're probably doing the most of we find, because you know this as marketers, a lot of people are just full of shit, right? Like, so we have like campaigns. Just a quick story. So we did a campaign for a doctor, and it was for a doctor who gets for men, and we did a campaign on Grindr, which is a gay men's dating app, and sure enough, is this number and this landing page only appeared on this landing page, this app, so we know where they came from.
Sure.
Right. Now, you don't go to somebody who comes in and say, hey, by the way, you know, were you on Grindr? We asked them, hey, where did you hear about us? Oh, I saw you online. You know, we knew where we came from, but we saw it online, right? My point being is that I don't think people have malintent, or they come there with goodwill, but sometimes people forget too. Where did you come in? Oh, I came in online, and you don't know. Is it Google? Is it Yelp? Whatever that is, right? So the reason why I like this tactic, geofencing, is because it's binary. If I go into an area where I'm getting mobile advertising, right, and it hits my phone, and I open it, and I go to said surgeon, or I go to said restaurant, it objectively says this person came in. I love geofencing. Have you done much with it? Where do you land on it?
Yeah, it's definitely a powerful tool.
Yeah.
We've used it in venues. We saw some success.
Yeah.
We saw not so much
It could go,
success,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
One of the things that we had trouble with, we had a venue in a very touristy spot.
So then it's false hits and stuff. Yeah.
So it was tough to track, things like that. So that was tough, but I'm a big fan of it. I will say I'm a big fan of it. But getting back to trackable metrics, restaurants and everybody should be very hyper focused on trackable metrics. I don't care if you're a restaurant. I don't care if you're a doctor. I don't care if you own a solar panel installation company. Tracking your metrics is so important. So when we were running campaigns inside of 7 Rooms, and we still do it to this day, 7 Rooms is my preferred platform. I have an affinity to the brand. They've been very good to me. I've been very good to them.
Dave Grutman in Miami was talking about 7 Rooms.
So that's how I found them. A funny story was when I first came and really started focusing in on hospitality and restaurants, he was sort of one of the guys I followed and really just sleuthed all his restaurants. And that's how I found 7 Rooms. So when I dug in, I went back to the hospitality group founder and I said, dude, we got to get on 7 Rooms, man. We're using Open Table and we're getting banged $1 every time.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Right. So I'm like, had a conversation with a salesperson. Next thing you know, we have 15 locations. Yeah. It's not like just one, right? So they couldn't wait to sign us up. Yeah. We signed up and I got right into the marketing side of that platform. And they were rolling out SMS. They said, I see you're a pretty savvy marketer. You want to beta test this. I said, absolutely. So I'm a raise your hand guy. And I'm going to get involved in everything that I possibly can and try and to establish that relationship, to get the experience and to get the benefits for my clients, right? Yeah. So they come out with this SMS program, this SMS text marketing program. They come out with the email marketing program, and I see it's night and day different than competitors. And I said, all right, let me have at it. Let me start sending out these campaigns. So, we had 15 locations. So we never had a lull in something to talk about. Yeah. We always had a campaign rolling at some point, right? So I start running these SMS text campaigns and email campaigns. And what's fantastic is 7 Rooms tracks that specific text. That specific text, that specific email, and tells me how much revenue that specific text and email came in.
Oh, wow.
How much revenue to the dollar.
Wow.
To the dollar. So I go back, we did this wine series dinner where we did it for like 4 months because everyone loved it. So every month we featured a different wine. We had a different vendor come in. And we pitched this wine dinner series, and every email that went out. So we could say we brought in $27,000 from this email,
just that.
Right? So fast forward, we look at 2024. I tally up, at nine venues, and I brought in over $1 million in revenue.
Just off an SMS.
Just
campaign.
off of SMS text campaign and email marketing campaigns. So it's tough to track. It's tough to, if you go in and you just say, oh, I want to run this campaign and that campaign. One of my first questions is, how are you going to track that?
This is kind of one of my pet peeves. Going to be wrapping up soon, but one of my pet peeves is I don't want to knock any of the reservation platforms because they might want to sponsor. As a marketer, so I be transparent on retainer, on a retainer side of the business. I shouldn't say this. We avoid restaurant retainers. Okay. On our side, we're not knocking anybody else, because we get a retainer, do SEO, PPC, or whatever it is. We have a great month. We're the best people in the world. We get a bad month. They want to fire us.
Yeah, you're the worst.
And it's like, people have better EQ. So we tend to go in other spaces. But on the digest side, we do these activations that give good ROAS, not just on initial spend, but on giving you a good long-time LTV, lifetime value. Mm-hmm. But one of the things I don't like is with the platforms, they install themselves on your Google local, right?
Yeah.
So when I make a reservation, it has to go through their platform. And one thing they're lying about, and I'll prove this, is, if it's organic or through the website, you don't pay. That's bullshit. Because your website's here, you parked yourself on Google Local, so I don't even get to your website. You're getting attribution to that. So they're getting that dollar or whatever that is through your own marketing.
Yes.
So is there a workaround or not really?
I hate to say, but I don't believe there is a workaround. But one thing that we've done to streamline user experience is there's something called Google Reserve. And what you could do is you could tie your Google Reserve to 7 Rooms or to OpenTable, and you could leverage that Google Reserve. So it's kind of a seamless experience for the guest to come to Google, see your restaurant, and just click reserve. They don't give a damn. Yeah. And it'll say right underneath there, powered by OpenTable or powered by 7 Rooms. Yeah. They just want to book the damn reservation. So that's good, right? But to your point, it's a conversation that, should be brought up. But I just was like, listen, I get it. It makes sense. The one thing that 7 Rooms struggles with, it's not a search engine like OpenTable and Resi. People use Resi and OpenTable as search engines, especially if they're traveling or visiting from a different area, right? 7 Rooms, you don't have that so much, but they're coming up with some really cool, innovative things that you'll see in 2025. I sound like I'm a salesperson for 7 Rooms. No, it doesn't hurt. Maybe I'll sponsor the show. No, I love them. But long story short, I go back to the point, and it's tracking the metrics. And that's something that we do at Branded Table. Yeah, we have to be able to track, because at the end of 30, 60, 90 days, I want to know how I helped you. I want you to see when you put $1 in, you got $7 out. Yeah. We were at the point with one venue where when we ran an SMS text campaign, it would cost us $1, the restaurant $1, but $71 were coming back from every guest. $71.
Wow.
It was insane.
Never even heard that much.
And that is
the highest I've seen, just for reference, is like 21.
Yeah, so because the venue, that's high. As we were getting more subscribers,
it started to
the cost of the SMS text platform was going up.
Oh, got it.
Right, the more subscribers, the more
I got it.
The more text would go out, and then 7 Rooms there was like a scale, right? So, director of ops comes to me and says, poof, got the bill for SMS text this week. Woo.
But you were able to show the revenue.
Yeah, I said, dude, we spend $1, we're bringing in $71. This thing's paying it for.
So I would say spend $1 million in.
Right. That's exactly right. If we could do that, but very hard to showcase your value, to position yourself if you don't have these metrics in place. So when we come in and serve a client, that's the first thing we ask is, you got a great campaign? Fine. Let's talk about it. Let's explore it. Let's roll it out. But if you can't track it, don't do it.
As a consultant, I don't know if this is your wheelhouse. I'll give you some examples of one example, but I heard multiple times. Our generation, kind of, you had the uncle, the father, we talked about some people really loved, that had, the business, had the pizzeria, they had their restaurant. Maybe they got, fortunate through hard work, opened a few units. But I've noticed a few different restaurants either completely close down or sell out because the kids want nothing to do with it, right? So, have you seen where do you kind of land on that? What are you seeing now? And then as a consultant, do you kind of help maybe businesses sell or maybe help transition? How does that work?
Yeah, listen. You can't force somebody to do something that they don't want to do,
Yeah,
right?
true.
I've never experienced anything fruitful trying to stick a square peg in a round hole,
Yeah.
right? So if that's something that you see coming up on the horizon, my suggestion is that you start to plan ahead.
Exit strategy.
Yes.
Even as a single unit pizzeria guy, you got to say, hey, how am I get out of here?
Yeah, I mean, we don't have enough time but there's a venue, there's a wedding hall. The guy lives across the street from me that owns it, and he told me the story on how he acquired that wedding hall 30 years ago.
Interesting.
And it was this father who had 3 kids, and the 3 kids were fighting over money constantly. And so the father was like, when I die, I don't want these kids fighting over money.
Yeah.
So I'm selling I'm selling the venue. He sold the venue.
Interesting.
And, gave the kids, the payout, each got a third, right? Or whatever. But he said, I do not want to see these kids after I'm dead fighting to the death over this place.
Interesting.
And so that's a good example of how he kind of dumped it in advance, knowing that it wasn't going to turn out well for the family.
One last thing before we conclude. We chat a little bit about philosophy, even offline. When we first talked, we got a good energy. And one of the things I found different from you is you're not the bullshit consultant. You actually work on execution. I'm actually surprised that you do, because just so you know, guys, there's a lot of money in strategy. There's not as much in execution. Right. But the fact that he does strategy and execution is rare. So give me kind of why you do that, and what are some of the things you do to help execute on?
Yeah, so going back to the origin, right? I am a graphic designer by trade. I mean, that's what I started.
Yeah.
My
I love that, by the way.
Right, and I taught myself.
Yeah.
I got so enamored by graphic design where I was using the hospital that I was working at the time, the company laptop that they gave me.
That's awesome.
I downloaded the app, and I'm using my finger as the mouse, designing.
And that was like Photoshop and
like Photoshop 3.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
So I am a creative at the core. But it was so funny. I asked ChatGPT this the other day. I've been using AI for a couple of years now, and what's the word? I have machine learned my ChatGPT. This thing knows. It's kind of creepy, but it knows me better than I know myself sometimes.
Interesting.
FYI, you don't want to put any personal information like social security number on that kind of stuff. So disclaimer there. But if you want to get personal with ChatGPT, you can. It's safe. And I know some people will challenge me on that. But anyway, I went in and I asked ChatGPT, what makes me different from different consultants and brand strategists out there? And what it returned back to me was quite interesting. They said, you have a passion for design and the creative side of it, but you also have this keen business sense, and you want to grow businesses as much as you want the creative to really speak to the end user. But it also, there's another part of that where you want to create experiences for people that enrich their lives. And when you get somebody, either a creative or a business growth guy, they're kind of like, or gal, they're kind of one or the other.
Yeah.
Right.
Say.
And for me, I come with both passions, both loves. And I think that's what really changes the experience when you start working with Brand to Table. Is we want the branding identity to really reflect who you are, but we also want to see you grow.
Love that. And you need a consultant or a marketer or whoever that loves what they do, because I'm the same way. I love to help businesses grow. Obviously, you want to be rewarded for that, but I love it as well. So we're going to wrap it up. How can people find you, Henry?
Yeah, so Instagram is probably the best place. You just type in Henry Kaminski Jr. I'm coming right up. Brandtotable.com. Beautiful. Fantastic website. Big shout out to Richard who put that piece together
really
for me.
Nice website.
Yeah, so those are the 2 spots, and I hang out the most.
Awesome. We'll put some links below to the brand at the table, also your social. And this is fun. We'll have you back.
Appreciate you, Tom. Thank you so much.
Thank you.